Okay, so I'm going to go over a problem that went in again, just in case I didn't make this clear enough. The gains for trade question. I think when people they understand the opportunity cost part, but when you get to the terms of trade, that's where like the price what it needs to be at. I'll go over that in a little more detail here. All right. Okay. So we have our problem. It looked at Japan and Korea, and they both have the same amount of hours, 2,400. If Japan spent all their time producing cars, they would get 80. They could produce 80 cars. If they spend all their time producing airplanes, it would be 16. What about Korea? Well, they can produce 48 cars or 16 airplanes. Now they're also free to like do some combination. Okay, so when we're thinking about absolute advantage, Japan would have an absolute advantage in producing cars. They can produce 80, whereas Korea only 48. So Japan has absolute advantage in cars. You're looking at absolute, like actual units that can be produced. Hey, there's 48. What about airplane? Well, nobody has an advantage, absolute advantage in producing airplanes. They both can produce the same amount. Okay. Well, is there any need for them to trade then? Like, since would Japan have any use since it can produce as many airplanes or can produce more cars? Well, no. To know that, you need to actually look at comparative advantage. All right. That is, you're looking at the opportunity cost to produce each good. Maybe each country, one of them has a lower opportunity cost of one good, whereas the other one, and that sets up the opportunity to trade. All right. It may be better. Japan may be more efficient at producing cars and airplanes in comparison to itself in terms of opportunity cost. All right. And if that's the case, there may be an opportunity for them to trade. Okay. So first thing we'll do is we need to determine the opportunity cost. Then we can see who has a comparative advantage. All right. So we'll look at Japan first. All right. We know if they produce 80 cars, they'll be giving up 16 airplanes. So the opportunity cost of 80 cars is 16 airplanes for Japan. All right. In order to produce 80 cars, they got to give up production of 16 airplanes. What about in terms of opportunity cost of one car? Well, to determine this, you just take the 16 airplanes and you divide by 80. All right. So you divide by 80 by 80, you get 1. And you divide 16 by 80, you get 1/5. Okay. So the opportunity cost of one car is 1/5 of an airplane. Right. You devote time producing this car, you give up on producing 1/5 of an airplane. Okay, well, what about opportunity cost if Japan spent all their time producing 16 airplanes? Well, they would give up on 80 cars. And to find this in terms of airplanes. 16 airplanes, sorry about that. $16 airplanes, good production of 80 cars. And what about in terms of one airplane? Well, same thing. Just divide this by 16, let me give you the one airplane. Divide 80 by 16, and that'll give you 5 cars. Right? So if Japan decides to produce one more airplane, they got to give up the production of 5 cars. That's the opportunity cost. One airplane is 5 cars. Okay. Now let's find this for Korea. Okay. Korea, if it produces 48 cars, the opportunity cost of producing this 48 cars will be 16 airplanes. So what about the opportunity cost of one car? Let's divide both sides by 48. 48 by 48, 1. 16 divided by 48. equals 1/3 of an airplane. Right. So the opportunity cost of producing one car will be 1/3 of an airplane. You know, they'll be able to produce 1/3 less of an airplane if they produce this additional car. Okay, so the opportunity cost of one car is 1/3 of an airplane. Now, what about in terms of airplanes? Well, the opportunity cost of producing 16 airplanes, that is, they spend all their time producing airplanes, they would give up on 48 cars. So to get this in terms of one airplane, divide the 16 by 16, that gives you one airplane. But then you divide 48 by 16, this will give you 3 cars. So if they decide to produce an additional car, they're going to give up, additional airplane, Korea is going to have to give up 3 cars for that. So that's the opportunity cost of this airplane, it's 3 cars. Okay? All right. So let's see who has the comparative advantage in what. And let's rewrite this out. Okay. So Japan, opportunity cost, one airplane is 5 cars. Opportunity cost of one car is 1/5 of an airplane. What about Korea? Opportunity cost of one airplane is 3 cars. What about in terms of cars? Well, opportunity cost of one car, equals 1/3 of an airplane. All right. So let's see who has a comparative advantage in what. Comparative advantage in airplanes will be whoever has the lowest opportunity cost. All right. So Japan is 5 cars, Korea is 3 cars. So Korea has a comparative advantage in airplanes. All right, so if they want to trade, Korea should produce a little more airplanes and trade them to Japan for something. Now, does Japan actually have any interest in doing this? We'll see if they have a comparative advantage in something. So let's look at the comparative advantage of cars. Well, for Japan, they have to give it 1/5 of an airplane. But for Korea, the opportunity cost is 1/3. Right? So the opportunity cost is lower for Japan. So Japan has a comparative advantage in producing cars. So they should produce some additional cars for Korea for these airplanes, and Korea should produce some additional airplanes and trade with Japan to get some cars. So there is an opportunity for trade here because they both have a comparative advantage in the different good here. So it sets up where it could be, a benefit of actually trading. All right. Let's see. Let's erase all this, and I'll write what we need. We'll go now to talk about the terms of trade. This is where, so you see how, it can be advantageous for them trading with each other because one of them has a comparative advantage and the other good here. So it sets up where they can trade. Okay. So let's write down for Korea. Opportunity cost, one car equals 1/3 of an airplane. One airplane equals 3 cars. What about Japan? One car is 1/5 of an airplane. One airplane is 5 cars. And we said there's an opportunity, all right, for Japan to trade cars to Korea in exchange for Korea producing some additional airplanes. Right. And that's because Japan has a comparative advantage in cars, it has a lower opportunity cost, whereas Korea has a lower opportunity cost for producing airplanes, so it has a comparative advantage in producing the airplanes. So that sets up where the Japan would want to trade cars to Korea. In exchange, Korea would send over some airplanes. Now let's find the terms of trade. Right. And so to think about this, let's think about what's a good trade for Japan. What would be a good trade for Japan? Well, producing cars for airplanes. Okay. So they can produce, if they produce one car, they're giving up, 1/5 of an airplane. So if they produce 5 cars, let's get this in like complete numbers. 5 cars, they could, they could give up producing 5 cars and produce 1 airplane. So since they can do this, they're going to actually need to get an amount greater than 1 airplane for it to be worth their while to trade to Korea. All right. So Japan needs more than 1 airplane for 5 cars. All right. So 2 airplanes would be great. 5 cars. Okay. Or if they produced, 10 cars, they would need something greater than 2 airplanes. They would need 3 airplanes and so on. Okay. But if Korea's not offering more than 1 airplane for 5 cars, it's not worth their while. They'll just, okay, we need another airplane. We'll just give up producing 5 cars and build our own airplane. So they're going to need to get more than 1 airplane for 5 cars. Now, what constitutes a good trade for Korea? So let's write this down up here. Japan needs more than 1 airplane for every 5 cars. So this is the ratio that we need here. We got that. Now let's find this for Korea. What's a good trade for Korea? Well, so Korea can produce 1 airplane, or it can produce 5 for each airplane. It can produce 5 cars. All right, 1 airplane or 5 cars. That's its opportunity cost. All right. So Korea needs more than 5 cars for each airplane it trades. Okay. All right. So if somebody says, "Hey, we'll give you this 4 car," or Japan's like 4 cars here for 1 airplane, Korea's like, "No, it's not. I can just do it myself. I can get a better, I'm better off." But if Japan was to offer 6 cars for 1 airplane, it'd be a good deal for Korea. Okay. All right. Let's erase this. Let's write this down up here. Korea needs more than 5 cars per airplane. All right. Erase this now. Let's erase this too. Okay. All right. So this has to be within a range here, right? So Korea needs more than 3 cars for the airplane, but Japan will will not trade 5 cars or over. All right. Okay. So it need to be somewhere in between this range. That is, one airplane, Korea would need to get more than 3 cars, so 4 cars would be good. Japan, they can't give up more than 5 cars. All right, it need to be less than that. So they would need to, produce like 4 cars for one plane and trade with Korea here. So 4 would be a good price for both of them. 1 airplane for 4 cars. Okay, these would be somewhere between this range here. All right, so let's look at our question. Let's go through each one, and we'll talk about. It's asking, what would these be a good terms for trade? Number 9. I think it's number 9. 3, 4, 5. Yeah, it's asking which of the following prices would be a good trade for Japan? That is, they both would gain from it. So A was 3 airplanes for 3 cars. Well, remember Korea. Oh, I wrote this down wrong. That's 3. Yeah, Korea needs more than just more of this, man. Korea needs more than 3 cars for each airplane, right? So if they produce 3 airplanes, they're going to need. Korea's going to need 9 cars or greater. If they only get 9, there's no point in trading. It's the same they do it. So, but they're going to need more than, the 9 cars here. So this would be a bad deal for Korea. Great deal for Japan, but it'd be a bad deal for Korea. Right? They need to get at least 10 cars here. Right? 9 would just be a wash between them doing it themselves. So why produce these 3 airplanes and say some trade them for 3 when they can just give up producing these 3 airplanes and produce 9 themselves? So it makes no sense for them to trade. What about B? Well, B is 3 airplanes for 12 cars. All right. So for 3 airplanes, remember Korea, for each airplane, 3 cars. So for 3 airplanes, Korea would need 9 cars. All right. So that's a good deal for Korea. All right, 12 cars. That's 3. That's 3 more than they could get by doing it themselves. So okay, yeah, they would produce these 3 airplanes and trade for 12 cars would be a good deal. What about Japan? All right. Japan, they would need for every 1 airplane, it needs to be actually less than. What did I got here? Okay, all right. Yeah, for 1 airplane, they wouldn't give up. They need to give up less than 5 cars. All right. Okay. So for 3 airplanes, they need to give up less than 15 cars. All right. And which is this? 12 is less than 15. So it's a good deal, all right? Yep. Instead of producing these 3 airplanes themselves and losing out on 15 cars, they could produce 12, trade with Korea, and get 3 now instead. So this is a good deal for them. All right. So good deal for Japan as well. Okay, so this would be, B would be your answer here. And this would be a good trade for both of them. Okay. Because if Korea produces 12 cars themselves, they'd have to give up 4 airplanes, but now they're only giving up 3. And if Japan produces 3 airplanes themselves, they would need to give up 15 cars, but now they're only having to, produce 12 to get these 3 airplanes. So it's a good deal for both of them. Okay. So what's C? C is 5 airplanes for 12 cars. Okay. So Korea would be producing 5 airplanes to get 12 cars from Japan. All right. But Korea would need, 15 cars for 5 airplanes. It would need something greater than that. So, it can just give up producing these 5 airplanes and get 15 itself. So why would they trade for this? Because this wouldn't be a good deal, all right? So they would need to get more than 15 cars for these 5 airplanes. Where instead now they're only getting 12. Right? Whereas if they do it on their own, they give up these 5 airplanes, they could get 15 if they just do it themselves. So there's no gains for trade here. This is a bad deal for Korea. Okay, and D was Japan and Korea could not both gain from trade with each other at any price. We know it's not true because B they do gain from trade. Right? So the answer is B there. Okay, hopefully this helps some. I can't be able to confuse that yet. You have to think about it and work through it slowly. You just have to think about it from terms of each one. All right, what's a good deal for Japan? What do they need? Well, Japan, they need to give up less than 5 cars for 1 airplane, or else they just do it themselves. What about Korea? Well, they need to get more than 3 cars when they produce these airplanes, or they'll just produce the cars themselves. Okay, I hope this helps. That's it for that question.